We are here today with Ralph Hanauer, who is seeking re-election to the Ward 10 seat on the Springfield City Council in the April 2nd election. We appreciate you being here today. I invite you to start by providing an opening statement about who you are and why you are seeking another term.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me in today. My name is Ralph Hanauer, and for the last 4 years, I've had the pleasure of being an alderman for Ward 10. As alderman, I've handled over 1,500 constituent calls and voicemails and emails, held 4 ward meetings, been to many neighborhood association meetings, and of course I'm out in the ward and in the city, and I get stopped by people all the time and listen to their concerns. And I want to thank my family because they've had to sit there while I do it sometimes too, so they're a part of this as well. Besides constituent concerns, I've been able to get infrastructure improvements throughout the ward. I was able to work with Congressman LaHood to secure funding for Archer Elevator, which is scheduled to be upgraded this year from the roundabout, well, from Greenbrier to Wabash, which is a very important safety-related upgrade. As far as public safety, I've sponsored an ordinance to procure traffic control devices to enable the fire department to turn lights green along their route to quicken their response time to the southwest side of the city. Placed body cameras on the police, and we've established an e-commerce safe zone. As a fiscal watchdog, I've saved the CWLP ratepayers $60 million on the coal and transportation contract renegotiations. I've cut CWLP budget by over $11.5 million. These steps have helped keep the rates low for the citizens. In the past 4 years, I've also established Economic Development Commission, Inspector General, and Ethics Committee. I'm proud of my accomplishments, but I have a lot more to do, and that's why I'm running for a second term. Thank you.
Okay. What do you see as the most pressing issues facing Ward 10
well,
that you would want to address if given another term?
In Ward 10, probably the biggest issues are the farm roads that we have that are seeing increased traffic. Archer Elevators is a good example that needed to be upgraded. It should have been upgraded 15 years ago. We have the Isles extension out. It needs to be extended out past the roundabout to the west. I have Cockrell Lane, where we're seeing a lot of traffic from Savannah Point and Bogey Hills and Panther Creek. One of the biggest problems with Cockrell is it's got a one-lane railroad bridge that was built in 1909, and you can't get fire trucks underneath it, so they have to go around through the Route 4. That needs to be widened, and the road needs to be upgraded. And I can't forget Chatham Road from just south of Westchester. That needs to be upgraded as well, probably up to the bridge, or however far we can get it, but at least past Lincolnshire. The ditches outside in Lincolnshire fill up with water when it rains. A lot of times it floods the street as well. So I think right now that's probably our biggest issue in Ward 10 is just upgrading these streets.
So with those priorities, the roundabout, how did that get above that? And do you think the roundabout was the most critically needed thing?
Well, all that was done before I got in. I will tell you that it seems to have been a positive thing for Ward 10. I've heard of only a few, I think 3 accidents there. I think there's been more accidents at some of the stop signs in the ward than there has been at the roundabout. The feedback I get from it is positive. So I can't tell you why that decision was made because, again, it wasn't in my ward, or it wasn't in my term. To me, it probably would have been a little bit better to look at fixing Archer Elevator from Wabash to Isles, and then looking at the roundabout. But I guess if they get the roundabout, then you're almost forced to get the money to extend Archer Elevator. But what it does, it left Isles and Archer where it just cuts it off, where you have 2 lanes and it just cuts it off, you know, and so that's where the safety concerns are, and that's what I spoke with Congressman LaHood and showed him that, you know, this is a safety concern. We were able to get some funds to help upgrade. And roads are expensive. That's the biggest problem with all our issues out there. Roads are very expensive.
With the larger context, you know, with the roads needs, what's your view on development in the ward at this point?
Well, I think that if Springfield is not developing, we're dying. Ward 10 seems to be the area where developers are focusing on. I don't know, you know, not being a developer, I don't know why that is the case, but I welcome development because it brings in economic tax dollars that we desperately need, and so I'm in favor of it.
Some other candidates have argued that the city should try to help get development in other areas. Do you think that's feasible, or?
I think that we provide incentives in other areas downtown. We have TIF money. We have all kinds of incentives. You know, ultimately, a developer's only going to put things where they're going to make money. Let's be honest. They're you know, if they don't feel they're going to make money in a certain area, they're not going to develop. Now, again, I don't know why what the premise is of them building in Ward 10, but I'm all for it, and you know, maybe eventually they'll go to one of the other areas, but it's hard for them to go. I think it would be hard for them to go to an area where they're going to have to tear down houses or whatever, and because that's added cost and whatnot. But not being in the business, I don't know what their reasoning is.
So what part does the developer play relative to infrastructure?
Well, the developer actually builds the roads, and so we have minimum standards on the roads that have to be built
In a subdivision.
In a subdivision, and the arterial roads, that if the roads aren't up to minimum standards, they have to bring that up to minimum standards in most cases. Now, the way they're in the process of coming up with a new, I don't know if it's called a developer's agreement or what, but what the old agreement was they would pay so much per foot of frontage, and they would give a letter of credit so that when we called that in, that would be their portion of the road. We would have to pay our portion and whatnot. My understanding is the mayor has called in many of those letters of credit. That's one way. Linhart Road, they're looking at trying to fix some of that up this year. I think they've done some work on Cockrell, and I'm not sure of some of the other roads, but I know that they have done that. And then they've been, like I said, negotiating with development, with the development group, to come up with a new plan going forward. And I'm not sure. I haven't heard where that's at lately. But they do take. It's like what I was told was one side takes a third, city takes a third, and the other side pays a third of the road theoretically. Is how it's supposed to be. And then in the subdivision, that's on the developer.
Right.
Looking citywide now, one of the pressing issues we feel that is facing Springfield is homelessness. And how would you, as a member of council, work to address the homelessness issues here in town?
Well, I've left it up to the experts. I certainly, I'm not an expert on it, and so I have to defer to the experts. I think we're going in the right direction with the police officer as that intervenes, and I think he's done a great job so far. Juan Huerta's done a good job as far as getting the homeless shelters and the overflow shelters up and running. The biggest issue I think is you've got a lot of people that are probably they have mental health issues, and trying to get them treatment is really hard, because if they don't want to be treated, they don't, you can't force them. So, and that's an issue. The other part is you just have some people that either through drug abuse or whatever, they do not want to follow the rules, so they don't want to go in. They can't go into a shelter. So it's a tough situation. I think that, but I do think that with the steps that we've taken lately, especially with the police officer that is interacting with them and trying to get them, taken care of, one, either through treatment, or some of them I know they're talking to their families, and their families want them home, and we're willing to pay a bus ticket to get them home, and so I know that's happened on a couple occasions as well. But I support. I kind of defer to the experts. I support what they say, and it's just it's a tough issue, and it's not just in Springfield. It's in a lot of other municipalities.
Absolutely. We as an edit board also believe the need for economic development is a huge issue for the city. There have been several projects during the past year that we as an edit board argued would have been good for the city, particularly the architecture firm that wanted to build on the old marina site by the lake and the Ferguson Booth building. So the council did vote those down, and we wanted to give incumbents a chance to explain their side, why they voted the way they did. And I boated out on Lake Springfield from the time I was a kid. I was a lake patrolman out there. I think my concern about putting more business, or actually putting a true business out on the lake, I think what it would do, it kind of takes away from the lake. And I thought it would take a precedence. Then you start getting other businesses that are going out there and buying houses, and you get a situation where you got a business in certain areas, and then you have houses right there. I just didn't think that it fit with the conformity of the lake. I think that area was blighted. It needed to be cleaned up. I've heard that there's some things that people are looking at maybe some homes or condos or whatever. I think that would be a more appropriate use for that area. okay. And the Ferguson Booth building?
Ferguson Booth, I just never, I wasn't comfortable. I'd like to see that building get done, yeah. But I don't think that the builder that was doing it, I don't think that he had the wherewithal to complete it. And we had already given quite a bit of money. I'd talked to other, I'd ask around to other developers and builders and that, and there was some concern about, I think his numbers were he was wanting to do $2,000 for an apartment a month without parking. And talking to realtors and developers and that, they said that there's just not a market for that here in town. So we needed to stop the bleeding as it stood, and that's the reason why I voted not to give him any more TIF money. And actually there was a loan associated too, and I didn't feel comfortable giving him a loan that from taxpayer money that I thought that would never get paid back.
Okay. What how should the city go about attracting businesses to Springfield?
Well, I think the Lincoln Land EDC, getting all the CEOs, the big corporations around town, getting them involved is a good way to start off with it. I think that for, you know, they can go out and attract the businesses. I think that from the city standpoint, we've got to figure out a way to where, number one, we're more business friendly, and by that I mean we shouldn't have to require, and I'm pushing for this in this next term, we should not have to have citizens or builders or whatever come down to City Hall to apply for licenses, for building permits, any type of permit really. We should have a portal online that we should be able to do that. If they need to submit plans, they should be able to submit them electronically. There's talk about a one-stop shop, but is a one-stop shop really something that's necessary when they come one day, and what I'm hearing from people, they come one day, and then they have to come back 2 weeks later to pick something up, and then they have to come back 2 more weeks later. We need to make things a little bit, simplify things, or make them more friendly for the businessman. I also think that we need to. One of the complaints I've heard is when they go through the different committees for regional planning, and then they have zoning committee and all that. I've heard that sometimes going through those committees, they feel like they're being scrutinized to the point that Springfield doesn't want them, and we need to change that attitude. When we have a big project come through here, why don't we have a project leader that leads them through that? We don't have that much big projects coming through. The city should have one person, one contact that takes them through. And if there's an issue with permits, which I've heard from people that built in my ward, they say they will never build in Springfield again. And that makes me sick. And the reason being is things take way too long. And, but you go through these committees, you got to treat people like you want them to be here, not like they're evil. And it starts there.
So what role can you as a council member have in changing that? I mean, that's the administration's job.
It is the administration's job. I'm going to push whoever the next mayor is to look at going with some type of a focal point. I'll call it a project leader that can track these larger projects through from beginning to end. I can't make laws that say that they have to do things, but I'm going to suggest that whoever is mayor will sit down and actually go through the plan from A to B and look at that, see if there's any steps that don't need to be done and how long each step takes. And then you can find out where your bottlenecks are and maybe try to improve it. It's a process improvement is what it is. From the council's point of view, one of the things that we did was that there was another step for over a certain amount of area that they had to go through another committee. Well, these committees, it seems like it takes a month between committees. And I think that they should figure out a way to shorten them. I don't understand why they have to be a month apart. So if you start something, before you can even think about going to the shovel to the ground, you're looking at 3 months. And that's money to these businesses. They're getting loans, and they're having to pay on that. So, I would work with the mayor, on trying to streamline some of this.
You brought up the EDC. How do you think they're doing? I mean, it's only about a year old now.
Yeah,
so.
they're still. I had a meeting with Eric and Josh, and I think that they were getting their feet wet, and I told them, look, we need to start seeing some things. The honeymoon's over, so it'll be this next year will be interesting to see what happens. I've had some conversations about some things with them, and hopefully we'll see things moving.
The city provided $250,000 this
Right.
past year. Can you remind me of your vote on that?
I voted for
That's
it.
what I thought. Would you be in favor of continuing that appropriation?
It'll be on a year-by-year basis.
Okay.
I want to see results. Keep in mind that the ask was 500,000, and we cut it back to 250. If we start seeing results, it may be something that we'll increase. I would look at increasing based on the results we're getting. But I knew it would take at least 1 year to get things in place, and then I expect to start seeing some things. And I'm not looking for an avalanche of businesses coming in, but I'm certainly looking to see some progress.
You did approve that, the council did, during what had been a financially tough time for the city the last couple of years budget-wise. And the council approved tax increases during the last 2 years as a way to help fill in some of that revenue gap, particularly thinking of the sales tax, the hotel motel, the telecom. Explain to us why you voted the way you did on those increases.
Well, number one, I don't believe in raising taxes. I did vote to raise the sales tax 0.25%, which I didn't feel that was a large impact to the taxpayers. It literally was hard for me to push that yes button because I am against increasing taxes. But over the last 4 years, I've been one of the guys that really drilled down the budget, and we were literally cutting as much as we could to get where we wanted to be. And I was concerned about some possible cuts that would take place, especially in the fire department, and it would affect Ward 10. And I had to outweigh voting for the tax over losing perhaps a fire house in Ward 10. So we went ahead and did it. It would take a lot for me to vote for another tax. As far as the EDC, the money, I think part of that was I know some of the cuts that we made, we said we would cut it from this line to go for the EDC because we had no economic development whatsoever prior to that. We had nothing. I personally don't believe, as a mayor does, that residency is economic development because residency does not bring one additional bit of property tax in unless someone builds a brand new house. Because right now, every house, every property in this town, they pay property taxes, right? Whether someone lives there or not, somebody's paying the property tax on them. And I don't think that I don't feel that we had any economic development at all, and it was important that we went this route. When you have CEOs contacting you saying, we need to do this, and they're on board. It's hard to say, look, these are the guys at the top of the groups in Springfield, so it makes you listen.
City's financial situation is stabilized. This budget year I certainly don't think has the tensions the past 2 years.
No,
have had.
it doesn't.
But pensions are certainly eating up an ever larger share of the city's finances, and certainly not an issue just for Springfield. It's throughout the state. You're limited to an extent by by the legislature and how you can address it. But what type of pension reforms would you advocate for if you stay on council?
Well, I think that I've said before that I think that the state, in one fell swoop, put us in this. My understanding was, and I don't know exact numbers, but I think if you look at the numbers before the pension enhancements that the state put in after 9/11, I think we went from roughly 80% funded or 70% funded to nearly half that in one night. Yeah. And my math could be wrong, but I think that, you know, what we've done so far, eliminating vacation spikes, eliminating people, you know, getting some type of a work spike, right, and then being able to walk out that day or something. We've stopped a lot of that, and selling back, the selling back vacation, you know, the vacation spike stuff. So I think we're in the same boat as a lot of other municipalities, and I think the state is, you know, we almost have to have the state take the lead on some of this. That's my belief. You know, I would say we want to make sure going forward that we do not allow people to take a big raise and then retire 2 months afterwards. We need to implement steps to stop that. And it could be tough with contract language too.
Yeah.
But that's something that we need to look at.
Okay. There's a proposal in the legislature to combine all the downstate police and fire pension funds, you know, those 650 funds in total.
Right.
Would you be in favor of that?
You know, I haven't looked at that. I haven't had the chance to really look at it, so I can't say if I would be in favor or not. I don't know what the positives and negatives are.
Okay, fair enough. What do you see as the most pressing issues facing CWLP, and how should they be addressed?
Well, there's a couple different issues that are a concern, and I've been on them since the day I walked in. But one of the issues is, and it's unknown, is what kind of environmental laws are going to be passed, and how is it going to affect the utility, and how much it's going to cost for us to conform to those. That's first and foremost. Another one is, you know, the ash pond cleanups is certainly an issue. We have put an environmental fund together to help offset some of that cost, but we don't know what that cost is going to be because we don't know what the law is going to tell us we have to do, or the EPA would have to tell us we have to do. You know, going forward, you know, we know we're 31 and 32 are probably going to be shut down. I don't think that's any secret. But what the IRP is going to say, you know, and how we move forward with the utility. I have heard from businesses that and the EDC as well, that there's a concern that the business rates are too high. Okay. And that's an issue that we need to address. And I know Doug Brown has said that they want to do a rate study, which I welcome. And, you know, so I guess a lot depends on the IRP and what's being said. We got some things behind us that were a detriment in the wind contracts. We kind of offset the wind contracts. We took care of it's $125, $130 million that it costs the ratepayers. You know, we've been looking at more renewables as well. We got the solar farm, which is a start. It's not. It's a way for us to kind of get our feet wet in that, and you know, it'll be interesting to see what the IRP says about how much renewables we need to purchase and things like that.
An issue I feel has been around the horseshoe a lot this last year is tourism. You guys have talked about that a lot. Do you think the city is leveraging its various attractions to the best of its ability, and could it do better?
I think Scott Dahl has been a great hire for tourism. I really do. I think that he is going to, he's brought some energy to that group that is desperately needed. I think that anything we can do to draw more people to our different tourism spots is worth it.
Topic of the last few years, the Y block. What do you think should go there?
Well, I think, first of all, the Y block shows why the city of Springfield should not be in the development business, because I don't think it was handled in the best way. My concern about it is we need taxable income coming from that nice piece of ground. Now we know that with the south end, they put the flood control tanks underneath, so chances are nothing can be built there. So that's going to be some green space. We know that. But the northern half, I would be in favor of getting it to a developer or whatever. I would love to see the universities, and I don't care if it's all three of them, but I'd love to see law school. That I think Springfield would have the law school filled up so quick it wouldn't be funny. And UIS, a presence from them. Yeah. I'd take Northwestern, anybody that wants to come down there, but I would like to see some type of a mixed-use building for half that lot. And I think that it would go real well with the Chamber of Commerce. Bought the church across the way. They're fixing it up. That's going to be a really cool setup with apartments and that. I think that'll really make that area pop. And with the Realtors Plaza and Jackson Street and the renovation from the mansion, I think that would really benefit that area.
Okay. Another hot topic is Capital Township, and should it be merged? Do you think it should be merged, and if so, with the city or the county?
Well, I'm going to follow what the voters of Ward 10, they think it should be merged to the county. Over 70% said that it voted for it to be merged in the county. I believe in what our voters say, and so I think that it should be merged with the county. If not, maybe just leave it alone for now. But I believe that the number the county's saying, the city's saying that they could save $500,000. The county's saying they can save over $650,000 or something like that. They've been doing it for a long time. We would have to hire, hire assessors and all that. I think it's better to be, if we do merge it, it would be better to be merged to the county.
Governing Magazine recently did a series of articles about several Midwest towns, including Springfield, and it argued there were multiple race-based inequalities here in our town. Did you see that article?
Is that well, I saw something from the Illinois Times on the race issue. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, there was initially a study by Governing Magazine that crunched a bunch of census and
right.
Other data.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't read that particular article, but I did read some of I skimmed through the other article with Pastor Johnson and that.
Do you think there are race-based inequalities here in Springfield?
Well, Pastor Johnson is a good man, and if him and Teresa Haley and them feel that there still are problems, and I would say that there must be problems. I think that no matter where we are, we have a lot we can improve on. I know, I do recall reading about the railroad tracks and all that, but but we have a good, diverse. We have diversity out in Ward 10, throughout the ward. So, I mean, I don't know, but to answer the question, if Teresa and Pastor Johnson, who's done a great job over on the east side, if they feel that there's still issues, I would have to agree with them.
Okay, well, we thank you for meeting with us today, Ralph, and invite you to give a brief closing statement as to why voters should give you another term.
All right, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you guys again for allowing me to be here. This was a little bit less stressful than 4 years ago, but I want to thank my family first, because time it does take away from family. Tuesday nights you're at council. I miss ball games. Like I said before, they've had to stand in the grocery store while I've talked to constituents. They're part of it, and they know, and they signed up for it too. They're aware of it. So I want to thank them. My wife Lisa and my sons Robbie and Levi. So they've allowed me to hold public office, and I appreciate it. I'd like to thank the voters of Ward 10, because 4 years ago they gave me this great opportunity, and I hope I haven't let them down. I've worked hard. They have a full-time alderman since I've retired from the state about 2 years ago, and I've got I think we've done a lot out there, and I want to continue. So thank you again.